Thanks very much for coming. Hopefully you're going to get a lot out of this session. First of all, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Paul McKean. I'm the Head of Further Education and Skills at Jisc. I'm manage strategy at Jisc across the 4 nations. And the aim of today's session really is not to learn so much about Jisc, although I'll outline some of the things that we're doing, but it's more about learning from people like Jerry and Colette here, who are going to have some discussions with you. Now, I know that the football's been going on over the last couple of nights, so some of you may not have a voice. I know how difficult that is, but hopefully you'll engage with the presentations that your 2 colleagues will be presenting shortly. So the aim of today's session is to talk about efficiencies and effectiveness in teaching and learning. So hopefully you can take some examples away with you and hopefully replicate some of these. At Jisc, what we've been working on is some basic fundamentals, because in order to be effective and efficient, you need some basics or fundamentals in place in order to build on them foundations and to be able to do things effectively. And it's no shock really that the very first thing on this slide is about digital capability of the workforce and student cohort, and this kind of links to the presentation that you've just heard from John. It's about digital capabilities not just within your workforce but within the workforce that the learners that you teach are going to be working in shortly, because it is, or education is all about really getting people jobs and getting them into employment. It's also about network infrastructure and resilience, and again that was mentioned just now by Jason and again by John. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but just to say that the aspiration for Jisc is to help and support all of the organisations and providers across the 4 UK nations to take advantage of these products and services, lots of which Jisc provide to you as a part of the grant that either Delney here in Northern Ireland or the other funders across the UK provide. Again, just providing another example of some things there, underpinned by strategic operational advice and guidance. That's kind of what Jisc does. The account managers that were introduced to you downstairs, and Hazel's here somewhere. Oh, Hazel's there at the door. Their job is really to help and support you achieve the objectives of actually embedding technology and efficiencies within your business to make sure you can spend the time on your learners. And that brings me to a point from my perspective about effectiveness in teaching and learning and efficiencies. The purpose of technology is to enhance the learner experience, to enhance the teaching and learning that your learners experience. And the way that I reflected it, the last college that I worked at had success rates of around about 84%. And the way I express to the staff that I work with is technology can help improve the life chances of the 16%. So the 84% are actually being successful in the way that you teach at the moment. But actually the people who've been disadvantaged are the 16%, maybe because they need a little bit of support, they need more independent advice and guidance from you and support as a practitioner, or they may need hand-holding. And actually what you can do with the use of technology is free up your time, be more efficient to enable the learners who get it already to be more independent, to actually progress at their own pace, to give you the time to concentrate on the learners that need your support. So the thing I just want to express now in a couple of slides is just what does success look like. And these are quotes from inspectorates from across the UK that actually look at what good or effective use of technology looks like. So again, I'm not going to necessarily read them all to you, but what's really important here is, I mean, the second bullet point there says learners use the college's virtual learning environment. Now, we kind of used to say just because they used it, it was success, but it's not. In this case, it's saying extensively, and it supports the studies to develop their independent learning. So going back to the point that I raised a moment ago, this is about making sure that 84% can progress at their own pace, giving you practitioners or the practitioners that you support the opportunity to develop that independent learning. Similarly, in this particular case, we've got highly effective independent learning, engaging learning environments, stimulating learners, so it's about making sure that learner experience is enhanced by the use of technology. It's not about using technology for technology's sake. And the second one there, information technology resources are modern, exceptionally well used, and in many subjects by both lecturers and learners. It's quite often that it's either the learner or the practitioner that uses the technology, but not necessarily both. It's really important that about using technology enhanced learning is about the learner experiencing that particular activity. And the last bullet point there, again, it's not all about what you do in the classroom. It's about staff monitoring and tracking learners' progress closely in order to enable you to provide that intervention when it's required. It's understanding that kind of early intervention at risk and making sure you're able to support the learners when and as they need it. So we've been working at Jisc on a couple of research projects recently. One of them is called the Digital, or the Student Digital Experience Tracker. It's involved a number of organisations in HE and FE across the UK. And these are just a few of the things that the learners have actually come back and said. So I've talked about what success looks like from a inspectorate perspective. This is what success looks like from a learner's point of view. And they're talking about access to more content. This is HE learners, 24/7 access to the library, putting as much as possible lecture notes, slides, etc. Online, and using technology and embracing new technology services and resources. What this is kind of telling us, and this is a thematic thing throughout the whole thing, is they're really talking about content is king. We're talking now about the Netflix generation, really consumers of lots and lots of information on demand, and actually we as educators need to provide that similar activity as they do in their normal social life. Moving into FE, providing support for learners, allowing access to social media and the internet. Interesting, years ago, lots of blocks, filters saying you can't use YouTube, you can't use Facebook, you can't do these things. The learners are demanding that they use the kind of social tools they do in everyday life. So just going on to some efficiencies, and again, the reason I put this slide up is this is, in a way, and we spoke to principals some time ago, and one of the activities, or one of the responses that we got back was, if we can save money on our business process, we can then invest more in our teachers and our teaching staff. And that's really important. So there's activities that Jisc do that kind of naturally save your business or your college or university money. And by investing that money that's saved in your teaching workforce, you can improve that quality of teaching and learning, give you more time to spend with your learners. One specific example here from South Staffordshire College around efficiencies in the classroom is the use of Chromebase. So what they were saying is they used to use laptops, and it took about 10 to 12 minutes to actually log into the system every time they set it up. They used a Chromebase, and it took less than 5 seconds. So if you kind of multiply that by every session in the college, you can imagine how much time and efficiency is saved. Just some very quick overview figures of Janet and the efficiencies that we provide, the value savings and efficiencies to the HE and FE sector. The Janet network, over £35 million. eBooks for FE, nearly £1 million. The CSERT, which is the security that we provide for the network, so the thing that looks after the Janet network and your information and the data that you transfer, just short of £23 million. EduRoam, about £8 million. UK Federated Access Management, so that's about single sign-on, making sure learners are authenticated, they can access to the resources. So that takes away a lot of work of your IT departments and also gives learners access to the kind of independent learning that they have an opportunity to access. And then finally, Jisc Collections, just the broad figure at the bottom, about £70 million. That's just as a broker, being able to aggregate the buying power, if you like, of the sector, being able to provide that. So I know that's been a kind of a whirlwind tour through Jisc, but these slides will be available. And again, your account managers are here to help you kind of ask any of the, or answer any of the questions or support processes that we provide. So without further ado, I'd like to pass over to Jerry.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jerry Devlin, Director of Curriculum in the Southern Regional College. And for those of you who don't know, Southern Regional College, we're based out of, with six major campuses. We're Newry, Armagh, Portadown, Banbridge, Lurgan and Kilkeel. And I suppose in terms of the use of blended learning, we're working in terms of significant development work around apprenticeships. And I'm just going to refer to one document, and I know John McGuigan referred to a number this morning, but the Northern Ireland Apprenticeship Strategy, June 2014, Securing Our Success. There's a section in this on the delivery of higher level apprenticeships. And really, my job as Curriculum Director is to ensure that we as a college are looking at the external environment and what the requirements are on us and how we actually move and change and manage our internal systems to meet the requirements of the external assessors and so on. So I'm just looking here. Yeah. So in terms of what we're going to talk about this morning, we're going to talk about a joint project between the college, Ulster University, and Norbrook Laboratories, one of our key employers in the region, and how we have developed a higher level apprenticeship in applied industrial science in cooperation with all of the key stakeholders. And really our challenge as a college is to how we deliver this, or how we use blended learning to enable effective effective delivery of the higher level apprenticeship. So just going to take you through a case study. I'm not saying what we're doing is right. I'm not saying what we're doing is wrong. It's an evolutionary process, if you like. I've been in the sector probably more years than I care to imagine. But what we as a sector are outstanding at doing is we're always adapting solutions to meet the needs of our learners, and we're very, very good at that. And we don't always get it right first time, but we'll go back, we'll have another go at it, we look at it, and we move forward. But you know, overall, I believe that we as a sector are very effective in what we do. So, in terms of blended learning framework, I pulled a couple of quotes out here. Just want to share with you. In terms of blended learning, the need for flexibility in learning is absolutely key, and the evidence would say that the adoption of blended learning practices continues at a low pace. So despite the fact that we're quite mature in what we're doing and so forth, that the adopting of those practices still continues at quite a low pace. And there's various views and various definitions of blended learning, and there's limited standard-based tools to guide academic practice. And that came from the School of Education and Learning in the University of South Wales in Australia. So if I'm going to ask you now to get a wee bit of energy going in the room here. I have a quote here: digital fluency or academics' confidence and skills in using online technologies remain low, despite the availability and affordances of digital technology. The low digital skills of academics compromise appropriate technology integration, limiting the facilitation of more effective student learning. Okay, I want to ask you, in the next minute or so, to turn to the person beside you and discuss that statement, and then can you come up with an answer based on your experience? Do you agree or disagree with that statement? So literally, I'll take a minute. It's a buzz group just to get a bit of energy going in the room here. So I want you to just look at that statement based on your own experience. Would you agree or disagree with that statement? And we'll ask me for a couple of responses before we move on. Okay, so we've literally got a minute to do this. Okay. So did we manage to get any consensus of response there? So anybody like to venture a solution that they've actually talked about with their partner? So in terms of digital fluency remains low despite the availability of technology. The low skills are limiting the facilitation of more effective student learning. Any? Yes.
Stephanie and I were having a chat, and we both agreed that was the case. But the discussion then went on to whether it was something that was inherent or whether it was something that could be trained into a given set of teachers or a given set of staff. At BMC, we've recently brought in a Centre of Excellence, and within Centre of Excellence we have the TEL team.
Yes.
And for the first time ever, we have mandatory training with respect to academic staff on such things like the learner management system or components of the VLE. So if I took one example, we have Microsoft OneNote class notebook. It sits in our system. If some people will use it, there's no overarching strategy yet, but there will be in relation to its application. So it's not, when you look at people, it's not that they can't use it, it's just that they haven't come in a formal setting to be trained in relation to its generic use, nor have they been trained in respect to how the college wish to apply that tool within the virtual learning environment. So I think you could read that at face value and think academics aren't able to use technology. I don't think that's the case at all.
Yep.
I think you have to have a strategy with regards to how you implement technology, and you have to do some very basic things, like you have to remit time to enable people to come in, because if you hope that they come in and it isn't competency-based training, then they'll come in ad hoc. They'll receive the training and they'll go off and they won't apply it in a coherent fashion.
I think, excellent. I think that's what's coming through from the research. Any other points? Yes.
So I'm half playing devil's advocate and half totally agreeing with you. So in our college we're doing the same thing. We're providing training to people on specific skills. Then we're following it up with homework and learning walks, which I know is not common in HE. So a learning walk is just when you drop into a classroom unannounced to see if they're doing the thing that you've trained them in. So we're holding them a little bit more accountable in the long term. But on the other hand, I do think that you don't need extensive digital skills to be good at something. One of the ladies that we work with, she still classes herself as a complete technophone. She's very scared of any new technology. But she does the best e-portfolios that I've ever seen. She's absolutely phenomenal. She has learned that one thing, and she is confident with that one thing, and her students perform excellently.
So despite the structured approach, there is excellent work happening, and there is excellent adoption, if you like, of blended learning techniques. So across the room, just before we move on, kind of a show of hands in terms of agreement with that statement or disagreement. So based on your knowledge and your perception, how many would agree or broadly agree with that statement? Okay, so it's probably less than 50%. How many would disagree with the statement? Okay, how many are not? Yes, go ahead, Michael. Yep.
I think it depends on whether it's your own experience in your own college or university, or the perception in general.
Yeah.
And I would also agree as well that digital skills are just part of pedagogical skills.
Yeah.
And those are the things that really need to be integrated together.
Yeah.
I think in the past we've focused on training people on digital skills in isolation from the
pedagogy. Yeah.
The two have to go hand in hand.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's been very useful. I'm conscious of time here, and probably in the last 10 minutes here, Paul. So normally, in these sort of buzz groups, I would then go on to talk about the understanding of what blended learning actually means. So I'll let you read that in your own time. What I would say is, if you have any questions, even after today, my contact details will be available. So I'll be more than happy to communicate with you. So moving on then, in terms of blended learning, the definition of blended learning, we would normally have had a buzz group there, talked about various definitions of blended learning. And this is a definition of blended learning which resonated with myself, and this came from a couple of references in around 2009-10, that blended learning is a process of integrating the most appropriate learning and teaching strategies, technology and or media to provide meaningful, flexible learning experiences to achieve learning outcomes. Now, that's quite a statement there. But I suppose in the utopian world, that's really where we're trying to get to in terms of with our staff, with our students, with the resources and so on and so forth. But that would have been the outcome had we have taken time to go through that buzz group earlier on. We may well have arrived at some of those keywords. Okay, moving on then to, we're now looking at the work that we've done in our own college, again in conjunction with Norbrook and with the University of Ulster. And the challenge really for all of us here is how do we effectively deliver curriculum to students, and if you look at the student set that we have now, the changes that we've seen in students over the last number of years. So really the challenge is, what does a blended learning delivery model look like? And again, it could be all things to all people, but really, from our point of view, I'm just giving a few examples here. The dark blue lines here are, I'm just looking here, the dark blue lines here are really in terms of VLE supporting learning, and the yellows there would be the face-to-face contact, and you could have all ranges from, across the continuum, from all face-to-face to all online learning, and the various stages in between. So we took us on to look at a specific example, which is a higher level apprenticeship in industrial science. And again, we're trying it, we're experimenting with it. We've some days we take 2 steps forward and maybe 3 back. Another day we take 2 steps forward and none back. But gradually we're getting to grips with it. So in terms then of the student activities in and around the VLE, again, engagement, exploring, experimentation, creation, and so on and so forth. There's quite a lot there. I'll talk about this later on, and then whenever Colette comes on to do the section that we had in conjunction with the University of Ulster, we'll take this a stage further. But basically, in our industrial science programme, what we were aiming to try and get to was about 25% face-to-face and 75% using the online tools and the VLE and so on and so forth. And that doesn't just happen overnight, and we try bits of it and we move on. And so in the 2015-16 academic year, we took it to certain stages. In 16-17, we're going to try and look at it, refine it, learn from what we've done, take it forward and move it on. We're actually moving this. We have the model I'm going to talk to you about now is we've actually agreed on that model as a college model for taking blended learning forward. Okay, and we're sticking rigidly to that. So our intention would be to apply this across other curriculum areas over the next 2 to 3 years. So again, the key issues for us in terms of taking this forward, 3 key issues: the design of the course, the academic practice that we have within the college, and the professional development that we need to take it forward. And really, the focus of the rest of the presentation will be on around the professional development and how we professionally develop our staff to take it forward. Okay, so if we look at course design, and again, the key thing there is the structure of the course. And again, with our teams in the college, we looked at how we would structure the delivery of the programme. So in terms of the modules that we picked to go forward in the applied industrial science, we have a chemistry module, which is 100 guided learning hours. We have a stats and mathematics module, 200 hours, and we have an academic skills module, 100 hours. So these were, if you like, the pilots that we took forward within the college. And again, we had staff were given time. Each of the head of, particularly head of school in this case, put a business case forward to myself in terms of what the costs that would be required, what the development would be required, and what the impact would be. So again, we put targets in place to do that. So as I say, the structure is the key. So again, what the team looked at was a study guide for our students. Now remember, these students are out working 4 days a week. They're with the college a day and an evening a week. So they're out 4 days a week. They have a fairly significant job role within Norbrook. So there's big demands on them, and you know, during their working day, there's big demands on them again to actually work through the assessment work and the learning that we're doing within the programme. So again, the weekly guide again, this was through an engagement with our staff. Weekly learning guide should include, and I'm not going to go through them all, but there's learning outcomes and objectives, learner engagement, formative assessment, project activities, and so on. So again, there was a structured weekly guide that we took that through for each of the modules. And again, if I look at that, just to see what it might look like. And again, this is probably very, very difficult to see, but this is our virtual learning environment. And again, so we have a number of areas here. So for example there, week 1, you've got a link there from week 1, which if you're a student in week 1, will take you into the structure for that particular week, the activities that you're doing for that particular week. These will be made available to everybody after the session. So again, it's a screenshot here, it's quite hard to see. So the team probably was maybe no more than, okay, so in the last 5 minutes here, the team was probably no more than maybe 2 to 3 weeks ahead of the students, you know, in the initial development phase. But we're getting better at it. There's absolutely no doubt, and it's the development cycle has, if you like, speeded up as a result of the experience. So that's the middle. And again, so this is week 2 resources. And again, just if you look there, the list of resources that the team would come together, working with our technologists to actually put these resources in place. So again, if you're a student and for whatever reason you miss week 2, you can actually go in there and pick up the resources that have been used in week 2. There's synchronous and asynchronous forums going on, so again, there's chances for students to catch up. So again, course design, this is an extract for the study guide, and again, I'll leave you to read that in your own time, but basically, just pick number 1 there, before the lecture, print the lecture notes now, and again, you might say to yourself, well, are we going away from what we're actually supposed to be about here? You've actually got electronic learning here, and yet you're printing lecture notes, but this is really to get the students involved in this. Again, as we're finding out there, they're getting more slick now at actually using the computer. And I would say that we actually supplied, it was a Microsoft Surface Pro 3 to all of these students. Okay, so again, as they got to use the Microsoft Surface Pro 3, they're getting more slick at actually adapting what they're doing. Okay, so again, that's an extract from the study guide. And again, there's always a feedback at the end of every week. On completion of week 2, post your comments and feedback to the activity forum. Okay, so again, we're working with them on that. And the student feedback has been very, very positive. And again, in terms of the asynchronous forums and GoToMeetings, again, just your discussion forums, there's one-to-one interaction with tutors and so on and so forth. So again, very, very difficult to read that. But that, again, is a structured approach that we've actually used with all of our students, and we're actually rolling that out across the college. So in terms of professional development, and again, this is where we're coming into Colette's presentation now. Number of key tools here. Viewpoint for curriculum design, and again, Viewpoint module. Colette will talk to you about that. Colette and her team have been in the college, have actually trained up our staff, and some of our staff are here today, and they'll give you some feedback on that. E-tutoring, GoToMeeting, turn it in, creating learning objects, and the program that we have developed will end up as a postgraduate certificate in digital learning accredited by the University of Ulster, and it has 60 credit points. 60 credit points, okay. And again, for those of you that remember back in 2011, whenever the blended learning strategy came in from the department, there was a TLD qualification, and again we got feedback from the sector as to how effective or ineffective it was. So we've actually taken feedback on that as well to help develop this particular program. And this again is going to be quite difficult to read for you. But in terms of professional development, that what we've done is each of our staff in the teams that are actually requiring professional development, again, I require that each of them have an action plan here to take us forward. So again, if we look where we are at the moment for the applied science there, with 3 staff members actually have gone through the e-tutoring program, have gone through viewpoint design, and where it's green, they've actually gone through and completed that and come out to the far end with it. If you look across here, these different modules, M1, M2, and so on and so forth, these are the modules within the program, and again, Colette will pick up the detail on that and how Colette's team has worked with our staff to actually move that forward. So again, we have a plan in place for 16, 17 again, where we'll have staff coming through, picking up this learning, and again they'll be applying that in their teaching and learning. So and again, some of the toolkits that we're actually looking at, again, the types of digital tools that we're actually using, the suggested software that we're actually using, and again, so if learners are receiving information, we've got information here which will help if they're exploring, if they're practicing, if they're imitating, experimenting, debating, creating, and meta learning. Again, there's a series of software tools there that we're actually using, and again, going through the staff development will enable our staff to have a toolkit that they can take forward to developing that. So that's myself done very, very quickly, a very quick run through. Again, if there's any questions at the end, I'm happy to take those questions up. We're probably on the first rung of the ladder as far as this is concerned, but we believe that there's a structure and a process in place here, and it's to try and take that forward and embed that across the college. So I'm now going to hand over to Colette to take you through how Colette and her team have worked with our team to get us to where we are at the moment. So over to Colette.
Okay guys, I'm going to give you more detail on the solution that we've created in partnership and consultation with SR. It's all about developing a sustainable CPD model. What I'm going to do is first of all take you through how the research, why there is a need for a robust CPD solution, how the research has informed our solution, and then what we've actually created on the back of this as well. So I'm going to open with this, the digital skills crisis. Don't know if anybody's seen it in the BBC News last week. Very fresh from the Science and Technology Committee just last week, emphasising a number of really important facts regarding where we are, regarding digital skills and post-primary sector mainly, but also it's relevant to the FE sector as well. But one of the key findings from that stated that 90% of jobs is going to require some digital skills. And it also recommended as well that teachers need to be obviously upskilled to deliver digital skills, that it shouldn't actually be it shouldn't be a standalone subject, but it should be mainstream within all of the curriculum areas. And this supported the findings by a Jisc report just released in November by Chatterton and Redbrick that suggested that there is an employability gap to what our students are turning up with in the first day of employment and a mismatch to what actually employers are expecting. So as our duty as FE and HE practitioners, we do have a responsibility to embed these skills into our curriculum for our students. And again, another report by Jisc in March last year echoed this as well. In order for us actually to give our students these digital skills, that we as practitioners need to be confident and capable in actually using the technology as well. And again, this actual research was tested and reported back again just last week, was all very timely for this talk, actually reported that this is true, that 7 out of 10 learners do believe that when technology is used by teaching staff, that it does enhance the learning experience. And you can obviously see, you can obviously see the facts and figures there as well. So, Rather than a digital skills crisis, for us as practitioners, is it a CPD crisis? And this has already been actually coming back through some of the discussions that we were having as well. And guilty as charged. Colette Murphy, staff development, working in staff development for about 15 years and brought hundreds of HE lectures through my training room on how to use specific technologies. Did it work? Yes. Did we get as many results as we wanted to? Probably not. So, how do we actually take that research to actually inform a solution that is flexible and will meet the needs of our practitioners? So one of the first things really that we really wanted to concentrate on was the student needs. And this is where the partnership with SRC became really important and very timely for Ulster as well. Because what we wanted to create was a CPD solution that actually didn't focus on the actual software training skills, but actually on the digital pedagogical practice around those actual tools. And again, it was already echoed in the room there as well. The vehicle to do this was our curriculum design. Why? Because if we want our students to have those digital skills, the only way we can do that is actually embed it into our curriculum design. So obviously for us, when we were designing these modules, the curriculum design was key, and there was a lot of time and energy and discussion put into that curriculum design. We'll be talking about that later on. We also wanted the CPD to be relevant. So yes, it's back to that research again. We wanted to increase our students' confidence and capabilities in using the technology, but focusing on the actual needs of the students and how to do it. And as well, we wanted to make sure that whatever solution we created, that we didn't have to come back into that training room again. That we were building up sustainability, sustainable skills for the teaching practitioners, and obviously that was going to benefit the college as well. So back to Jerry's example of the HLA that the college was delivering. That programme was up and running very quickly, so we did have to provide some immediate short course programmes for the teaching team on the HLA. And this was some of the actual different learning and development mechanisms that we brought in. We brought in the Jisc viewpoint curriculum design framework, and again, that was developed at the University of Ulster. We also put the staff through an eTutor online course, which really focused on the communication and collaboration skills in an online learning setting. And we also covered e-assessment with them as well. The good practice, again, using viewpoints, assessment and feedback cards, but also introducing them to a tool that would enable effective e-assessment as well. But there was a long-term strategy needed for the college as well, because there was a number of HLAs going to be developed as well. So back to the student needs at the very beginning, this was an integral part of the development. We had to work in partnership with the practitioners, see some of them's in the room. We had to work in partnership with the 13 selected staff that was coming on the pilot of this particular course. And this actually proved to be a really effective process that we brought in. So we spent one day with the staff. We consulted with them on the first module that we had designed. But after that, then we spent the rest of the day getting the staff's feedback, ideas on the remaining two modules that we were creating with them. And their ideas really did influence and shape the actual nature of those modules. Now back to the curriculum design that I talked about. The main driver as a change agent is where basically we've got control over and we can actually make changes in there. So our slogan for the modules was we had to walk the walk. And again, this came out as a really useful teaching technique from myself as a practitioner as well. Because again, as staff developers, if there's anybody in the room, you actually know that your practice is going to be imitated. And it is a great window to actually make change as well. So we had to make sure that our solution was blended. So we do block day teaching and the rest is all online. If we were asking them to flip the classroom, we had to flip the classroom. So we did that by providing webinars, e-resources. All of the assessment is online. We even flipped the assessment as well through different workshops that we did. Again, we were utilising the VLE tools that was available, but also exposing them to tools outside the VLE as well. And the other thing that was really important to make it relevant was to link the assessment to work practices. So the design of all of the assessments, we tried to make them authentic and also accessible as well. And you can see one of the person's feedback there from the last module. And again, by doing this, what we're actually doing, we're all in our comfort zone as practitioners. We've all been doing it for years. We know what works. And what we really wanted to do was enhance the practitioners' I suppose, I'm sorry, I've just lost my train of thought. What we really wanted to do was take them from the comfort zone into the learning zone, to enhance their teaching and learning practice and to extend that learning further. Sometimes, I suppose, they fell out from maybe the comfort zone into the old hell zone, but hopefully we were there to bring them back. And this is one example of the authentic assessment that we did. So this was our second module, and we got them to create an e-portfolio of all of the evidence related to the curriculum design. And also as well, we did a digital reflection as well. I see Stephen in the back. So yes, I won't point you out at this moment, Stephen, but we'll come to you for questions later. So yes, this again was another practical skill that we were developing with our students, getting them actually to record themselves. So then the first step in actually creating podcasts, creating webinars, etc. So again, there was lots of baby steps along the way. I also talk about as well, we wanted to create a sustainable learning solution. And this is where, again, we wanted to bring in, again, lifelong digital learning. It wasn't just a one quick stop shop. What we wanted to do was change practice, change mentality. And again, another piece of research by the National Institute of Adults and Continuing Education have basically lobbied for years and have successfully lobbied that digital skills be seen as a core skill alongside numeracy and literacy. And again, this quote was really, really stuck with me because no one has the digital skills they'll need in 5 years, never mind 50 years. So again, if we're building in that confidence and capability in using any technology, then again, it gives the lecturers autonomy to actually use those skills for any digital solution. And again, it's great to see in the college now, we can start to see evidence of this happening. So we've got some of the 13 staff that's doing the modules posting to their ILT logs. Some of their actual assessments that they've created is going to be actually institutional based workshops that are going to be rolled out across the colleges. We had one of the lecturers presenting a paper last week at a conference over in Liverpool. So constantly we're beginning to see this confidence and capability starting to improve. So that's what we wanted to do, and this is what we came up with. And again, it definitely has evolved as the partnership has actually grown over the past year. We basically started with one module, engaging students as partners. And this was a key module because again, it's a foundation layer to all of the other modules which I'll talk about. We also focused on designing curriculum in a digital society and discovering and developing digital learning solutions. And because that actual curriculum became so packed, we were actually creating 2 additional modules because we couldn't get everything crammed into the other ones. As we're saying, it really has developed over time. So we're creating 2 new modules over the summer in embracing learning spaces and assessment for learning and impact. So back to engaging students as partners. This was a foundation layer of the modules because what we really wanted to do was actually walk the walk and get our students to also treat their students as partners. And in that, again, with the evaluations from the modules come back really strong. The assessment for that module, the lecturers had to create a partnership strategy. Module 2, Design Curriculum for a Digital Society. This is where the learners were asked to take a piece of their learning, a lesson, unit, whatever it may be, and make it fit for blended learning. But continuing on and building on from Module 1, they had to do it in partnership with their students. And again, this proved to be a really effective tool because they were capturing the students' voice in the curriculum. And again, this was just some of the snippets of the feedback that was coming back. But again, reviewing my whole approach to designing learning, it was challenging, introduced new ways and approaches to learning. Where's the tools? We're through 2 modules and not one tool in sight. Again, is it not about advancing digital practice? But again, what I was saying before, it all came back to the curriculum design. And what we were focusing on was what the learner wanted. Some of the toolkits that Jerry showed earlier was from the viewpoints, learner engagement cards. And in that, what we were getting our students to do, rather than actually focusing on their development, we got them to focus on the digital skills of their students. What digital skills did they want to bring into the curriculum? And automatically, by knitting that digital skills into the curriculum, what was happening on the other side, and the flip side, the practitioner had to learn those tools themselves to actually deliver it to their students. So sublimely, they were actually self-developing their own digital capability, which came out really strong. Then we did get to the tools module eventually, and this is where they took their actual learning designs from the previous module, and now they were actually going to actually get them developed, implemented and evaluated with their students. What we aimed to do in this particular module was first of all inspire them with different tools, and we had guest lectures, Richard's in the room, coming in to inspire our students. But also as well, we were hopefully giving them the tools and the confidence to go off and start exploring their own digital solutions as well. And again, we placed a foundation layer to do that through different planners in the previous module. But as well, we've all been doing this game for quite a while. We're all recognised practitioners. We all do good practice. So what we wanted to do as well was enhance that actual practice as well. So again, how can we take our content? How can we make it more interactive and engaging? And again, one of the concepts we did to do that was actually digital storytelling. And again, it was thanks to Jisc and Chris Thompson, who we got over actually, we were introduced to Chris at this event last year, who actually come over to Ulster and did a training session. And from that, obviously then, Richard is actually out rolling that out now across Ulster. But as well, we wanted to extend the teaching and learning practice as well. And one of the actual applications to do that was through the facilitation skills, actually using these tools in the teaching room and actually applying those skills. And this all ties in very, very nicely with the FE strategy that John referenced this morning. FE means business, where it does talk, one of the key themes in that strategy is all about curriculum excellence and how it can only be achieved through ongoing but relevant CPD as well. And we hope that the modules does actually support this particular strategy. But the most important thing as well, the staff are being rewarded for the work that they've put in. It's an accredited post-grad level 7 qualification, so it's meeting the sector needs, but again, it's bringing back the point that we're extending the practice and recognising the good practice and building and extending that practice further for our practitioners. Now what I'm going to do is actually show you 2 of the digital stories that have been created by our students. They're in the front row, so we're going to give opportunities for questions in a couple of minutes as well at the end. And this is Gráinne's digital story, and it's titled Blended Learning, A Different Ball Game.
My name is Gráinne McGee, and welcome to my blended learning story. Designing learning activities, what's difficult about that? Isn't it our bread and butter? Good old group work, peer assessment, giving the occasional nod to ILT with an interactive quiz here and there. Basic but effective. But the times they are changing. The digital society is here, and designing curriculum for it, well, that's a different ballgame. As a committed technophobe, where to start, how to start. Discovering and developing digital learning solutions, that's where. Module 2 promised to modernise my teaching with solutions fit for the 21st century, and Module 3 did the impossible. took away my fear of technology. So now that I had the solution, what's my problem? I went back to 2013 when colleagues and I failed miserably to transform a PPD unit into a blended model, getting tied up in knots trying to be all ICT singing and dancing, forgetting about basics like the learning needs of students. So back to the future, and first things first. Evaluate the learner's digital experience. They may be avid users of smart devices, but for learning? And perhaps not surprisingly, they approached online learning with caution. Not to be daunted, a collaborative group of learners and staff pressed ahead with curriculum design workshop. Using Jisc viewpoints as prompts, we redesign activities and assessment, but would incorporate technology and hopefully a positive learner experience. Online activities and resources were made available on Moodle supported by a Mahara-based e-portfolio for assessment. A short tutorial, flipping the classroom, and a meeting with the learners helped to get them started. Support from their tutor helped to guide them through this very different world. So how did they get on? Well, it was a mixed bag. Perhaps not surprisingly, glitches with technology and the odd glitch with learners. Annotation and feedback on work submitted to the portfolio was cumbersome, and although most learners liked the idea of blended learning because it meant more time at home, they admitted they lacked the discipline to complete online activities in a timely manner. So where to now? Further exploration and development of an effective e-portfolio and tools to support learner engagement. Like the old proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Blended learning is a journey worth starting on.
Sorry, there was actually some rendering issues there. The pictures and the text did flow all really nicely there, but I think the main focus is the words there and the digital story and the change in practice and mentality that Grania has gone through. You will be able to access this again, so you will be able to see it in its perfect form as well. So in the second digital story, which is by Julianne, also taking the course, the same thing will probably happen. So again, if we focus more on the words maybe rather than the pictures.
Hi, my name is Julianne Stevenson and this is my digital storyboard. I was always told teaching wasn't for me. My parents are both teachers and in secondary education. I finished university in 2002 with a Bachelor of Science in Food Technology Management and started working in a family bakery. Lovely early starts, not that I minded, but deep down could always feel myself wanting to be that teacher. In 2004, I took the plunge and became a part-time lecturer, and that's where it all started. Historically, the School of Hospitality and Tourism delivered the Assessor and Verifier Awards across the Newry College. However, when the colleges merged to form SRC, this became more of a challenge. Why? Because lecturers were teaching across a number of campuses and programmes and it was difficult to schedule classes that everyone could attend. Everyone was just too busy. And the teaching team were frustrated and under pressure to ensure the learning outcomes were met and evidence gathered for the qualification. This approach was definitely not working and was obvious that a change in the delivery model had to be made to meet the demands of the college and staff. To do this, I decided to gather feedback from staff who had previously completed the qualification and staff who would be doing the qualification to find a way forward. So what did they tell me? Delivery needed to be flexible so they didn't need face-to-face teaching all the time. This could be done online. Also, if they practiced using SRC systems, they could then deploy them within their main programmes. Using this feedback, I redesigned the delivery models using Moodle to provide the course and assessment information and created an e-portfolio on Mahara to collate evidence. So what happened? Staff attended an induction class to be introduced to the concept of blended learning, obtain course and assessment information and an invitation to Mahara and demonstration on how to use it. They were then left to their own devices with me behind the screen to support through Skype meetings and individual emails. Midway through, I evaluated how the process was working with the learners using SurveyMonkey for the first time. What did they tell me? That they've been supported with the technical teething problems, that they would consider using these platforms in their own delivery, and that you need discipline to complete online learning. But it is the way forward to allow for flexibility.
So that gives you an idea of how we are challenging perceptions and thinking of practice and the reflection coming on the back of that. And again, a lot of new digital skills there for the practitioners. And again, back to the link of saying how we're making the assessments authentic. So again, we're building in skills for the practitioners as well. And again, modelling practice, because again, that assessment can easily be taken and cascaded down to their own practice for their own students as well. Jisc has been invaluable in forming the design of the solution, as you can see by the references. And again, what I love about Jisc as well is the actual content of these reports. They're so current, and again, reliable research as well that you can really rely on. Okay, thank you for your time and attention. And Paul, will hand back to yourself for questions.
Thank you. Just before I finish off, can we thank you the normal way, Colette and Jerry? Thank you. Hopefully some thought-provoking things there that you've learned, and I think I found it very useful indeed. What I just want to do to finish off is to give you an opportunity to get involved in some of the research that Colette's just referenced, but also to come back to the Digital Student Tracker survey that I talked about earlier on. So we talked about the things that the learners wanted you to continue doing. These are a couple of slides on the things that learners want to see you start doing. So this is HE and FE. So this particular reference is to HE. Learners want more recorded lectures. It's very interesting because back in 2006, I think I went to a mobile learning conference, and there was a presentation from a Canadian university, and they were actually saying that they'd done lecture recording, but learners wouldn't sit through 2 hours of a lecture. But what they'd actually done is made the lecture available to the students, and they edited it down to 2 minutes. And then it was a very effective learning object. So again, something that they may think they want, but actually they may not when they receive a 2-hour lecture. So it's something for us to engage with and to try and take forward. Better use of VLEs, improve online services, access to better and more computers. In the FE space, access to better and more computers, so identical reflections to the previous one. Better Wi-Fi access. I don't think this is necessarily an issue so much in Northern Ireland, but EduRoam, certainly within England, has not been taken up as effectively as it has in the devolved nations. But even where you have EduRoam, it's making sure people access it and utilise that kind of facility. Teach students and staff how best to use technology, hardware and software effectively and efficiently. Obviously, if you've got good CPD, that will happen. And put more resources online. Again, this reflection to content is king. They're a consumer generation. Netflix generation, I think, is a term that's sticking. People want on-demand content. So there is a link there, and again, these slides will be available to the Student Tracker report, which gives you a bit more detail. It gives you much more evidence, as Colette referenced there. About 70% of learners were really keen on the resources that they were receiving from staff. And the last thing there, that just a reminder from me, is to say, if you're interested, we are doing a blended learning market research project at the moment, and I've been asked by the staff at Jisc if you're interested in getting involved in that, if you can make yourself known to Hazel at some time during today. She'll take your details, and then we can engage you in that process. So I'd really like to thank you for your time. It's hopefully been an interesting start to the day. We're only at the start of the day, which is a good thing. We've obviously got other sessions, plenary sessions, and breakout sessions later this afternoon. So thanks very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Sorry, a special thanks to Julianne and Grania for their efforts today, because an awful lot of work goes into actually creating a digital story and for actually allowing everybody to see it and share it with us. So thank you.
Thank you.